What's up, everybody? What's going on? Welcome to another episode of Lead From Here podcast. My name is Jason. Today we're going to talk about setting boundaries, which is a fun topic because it's very, it's a little vague. I mean, ultimately it's a little vague, and your boundaries can cross a wide gamut of feelings, thoughts, emotions, and sometimes they're also very hard to understand. Very hard to even know what they are in a lot of situations. You really have to know yourself. You also have to know your self-worth. And that's something that I would say I'm pretty new to the self-reflection game. Like, it's definitely taken me some time to really reflect on how I feel about certain situations. So I've stumbled into a lot of my boundaries. There's been a handful of times where I had crossed into I had crossed boundaries that I was uncomfortable in work-wise. And I was like, this isn't great. I don't feel good about this. So I wrote it down to oh, don't do that again. Like, a good example of one is PTO. You know, I worked at a few companies back where for 2 years I didn't take a single real PTO. I had some sick days, sure, but I didn't take time off. And it set me into a place where I was just like, I am so not happy. I am so burnt out, and I'm so ineffective at my job that in that moment I decided that when I ended up leaving that company, I decided that no matter what, not putting myself in that position again. So what does that look like going forward? How do you set that boundary? Well, it's pretty easy. It's a little uncomfortable because it's usually during the interview process that you kind of have to set that boundary, because you have to ask, hey, what's your PTO policy? How much time do you get? Is it the same as sick days? Do you get, does it roll over? Does it accumulate? How does it happen? If I were to go over, what is the repercussions? Is it just docked pay? Is it, a written warning? What happens? If we get 4 weeks and I take 5, what does that mean? All those questions kind of let them know that this person's PTO is very important to them. And then when I start the job, that's the first conversation. My first one with my boss is listen, I'm going to max out my PTO. It has nothing to do with not trying to work, but in order for me to be the best employee I can possibly be for you, I have to set a time aside to reset, recalibrate my brain, reflect on what's working, what's not working in the job, in my job, and how I'm doing as an employee. And if I don't have that, I'm much less effective. So this is what it's going to kind of look like for me. If you have a problem with that, let's talk about it. But my goal is to stay as close to the policy as I possibly can. And usually it goes over pretty well. Every once in a while, they're kind of this guy just started and he's already talking about PTO. But at the end of the day, they see the work ethic. They see why I do what I do, because when I'm on, I'm on. And when I'm off, I'm off. And that's, that's changed over the years, and it looks a little differently now as a director than it did when I was a manager. And it's not that I still take plenty of time off, and I still make sure that I protect my time. But I'm a little more willing to find chunks of time where I'll check in and see how things are going and make sure my teams have everything they need. All those things. There will be weeks. I have weeks where I don't at all. I don't check in at all. I delete the Slack off my phone. I disconnect my email and I go dark for a week at a time. But that's only 1 or 2 weeks out of the year. The other 3 to 4, they're very much more chunks of time of disconnect, but I'm still connecting in between those chunks of time. So it's really about figuring out what works for you, which is hard. It's hard if you're not used to self-reflection. It's hard. And sometimes you'll just stumble into those boundaries, and that's okay. Just note it down, take note of it, and then figure out how you can communicate that you don't want that boundary to be crossed. There's a lot of different boundaries. I mean, everything from physical touch to the words people choose to use, nowadays you can talk about gender, you can talk about sexual orientation, there's a lot of boundaries that can be set that shouldn't be crossed, and it's up to you to understand what yours are. It's up to you to communicate effectively and not coming off from an entitled part, I deserve this. Just be this is who I am. And be upfront about it. Don't wait till you're 6 months in the job and be you've been crossing these boundaries and I don't appreciate it. Be upfront. Right if you know it's a thing, let them know it's a thing. Hope it's helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. Jason at leadfromhere.co and anywhere on social media. And I appreciate you guys' time. Take care.